was like working fine for a minute, and then it just decided to stop. Okay, so I think it's working now, except the resolution's really messed up.
Yeah, it's just me.
Let's see, we should be able to fix that right dish.
Okay, let's send this guy out.
Think. That's so funny. I like see it all moving around. Okay, so I guess we're back.
I think so. I checked on my phone. It looks like it's working.
Okay.
Okay.
Just keep working this time, please. Okay, so where we left off, in case this is a brand new stream and has to start over, Henry was explaining how he understands the stock market and stocks. So please continue, Henry.
Yeah, okay. So all I know basically is that you have a company, and the company can choose to be publicly owned. And people can then buy parts of the company in the form of stock shares. And then the price of the stock shares and how much they're worth fluctuates based off of how well the company's doing. Right? That's my understanding, basically, of the stock market.
Okay. So that's pretty close. Companies can decide to go public, and they decide how much they think their company's worth, and they break it into a certain amount of shares, and then people have the option of buying those shares. And then people will be willing to pay a certain price per share based on how well they think the company is doing or how much they think the company's worth today. The part that isn't necessarily correct is how well the company does not directly affect the share price. The share price is whatever somebody else is willing to pay for it. So you could have a company that's actually doing really bad, but if you can get people to think that it's worth more than it is, or that it's going to do really well, they will be willing to pay more for that price.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Who gets the money, though? So when they sell their shares, just the company's CEOs, like the high up people, get the money?
Well, so if you're going to make your company public and sell parts of it via shares, the people that are already in the company, they'll all divvy up a portion of those shares. So like the CEO might have a certain amount of shares, and so the company would get the shares. And so if you were a company, Henry Incorporated, and you were doing pretty well, you were getting pretty big, and you wanted to raise funds to go after some new markets or something, you could decide to make your company public, sell a portion of the company to the public, and then use that money you get to expand, or you could put it all in your pocket. It really just depends. But you would have to sell that to the shareholders, because once your company goes public, you have to be completely transparent about everything.
Okay. So how do things like, I know there's been a lot of talk about hedge funds. How does that relate to the stock exchange and the stock market in general?
Well, let's just Google a hedge fund real quick and see what the definition is. So a hedge fund, a limited partnership of investors that uses high-risk methods such as investing with borrowed money in hopes of realizing large capital gains. So a hedge fund is a group of investors that trades stocks, bonds, and trades things, and they'll use what's called leverage, which is borrowing money to buy more shares or more options or that kind of stuff. So like if you wanted to start a hedge fund, you could get some investors together and use your own money and use other people's money to trade, and that would be your business.
Okay, and then you give out the money that you earn to the people that you have their money.
Well, you have to pay back the loans with interest, whether or not you make money.
Okay.
And usually people, like if you wanted to start a hedge fund, you would use like a certain amount of your own capital in addition to all the others, because then if people know you're using your own money, then they're going to be more willing to loan you their money.
Yeah. Okay. That
But
makes
even
sense.
if your hedge fund sucks and you don't make any money, you're still going to have to pay back those loans.
So if a hedge fund is an example of something that's large risk, right? High risk.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that's lower risk?
Traditionally, things that are considered low risk would be like treasury bonds, municipal bonds, pretty much any kind of bonds. A bond is like a government will sell bonds. A bond, like for example, the 10-year bond is you'll basically give money to the government with the promise that in 10 years they will give you back your money plus interest, whatever the interest rate is. That's where the whole interest rates things comes from, is how much interest do you get from one of those bonds. And there's like, I think there's 2 years, there's 10 years, I think there's even like 50-year bonds, but 10-year bonds are the ones that everyone pays the closest attention to, because those are the ones that are like, I guess, the best signal or the best thing to pay attention to in regards to the bond market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know if this is related, but what are futures?
Futures, it's like just another like trading instrument, I guess is what you call it. It's a way to bet on what the future prices of things will be.
Mm-hmm.
So let's Google that, because I'm not a big futures guy. So like here's future options. So I know I can explain that. Future options is a type of security that grants the trader the right to buy or sell a futures contract at a specific price by a specific date. So let's look up what a futures contract is before. A futures contract is a legal agreement to buy or sell a particular commodity, asset, or security at a predetermined price at a pre-specified time in the future. So what's happened in our like modern day is there's so many different ways to like bet on the market. Mm-hmm. It's not only that you buy and sell corn today, you can buy and sell corn in the future. And then they have these things called options, and an option contract is pretty cool. So if you wanted to buy an options contract on a stock like Gamestop, you would buy this contract, and this contract would have like a due date. It'd have like an end date when this contract expired. So you could say, let's just say it expires in 1 month from now. So you buy this contract, and it's saying, I have the option to purchase 100 shares of this stock anytime between now and when the contract expires for this price. And the price is called a strike price. So it's kind of hard to explain if you haven't, been thinking about this stuff for a while, but let's just look at GameStop real quick. So what is GME? So the price of GameStop right now is $325. But a month ago, it was $17.25.
Mm-hmm.
So a month ago, you could have purchased an options contract that was saying, I will, between right now and a month from now, I have the option to buy 100 shares for $18, and whoever was selling you this contract would take like a premium, is what it's called. So you would pay them money to gain the right to purchase if you feel like it, this stock for $18, and they would have to sell it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would have done that a month ago and you exercised your right now, even though the price is $325, you could purchase those 100 shares for $18 because you already locked in that contract.
Yeah.
Or since it's called an option, you have the option. So if the price went down to 1, you can just say, nah, I'm not going to buy them, and I'm just going to lose the money I spent on the contract and be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
So The benefit of that is a month ago you could have purchased that option contract for probably like it's the contract is to buy 100 shares. So the share price was like about $18. So to buy 100 shares would have cost you 18,000, but that contract only probably cost you like $18, if that, probably not even that. So you spend $18 today or to have the option to buy this stock sometime in the next 30 days for $18.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you can also sell that contract anytime before it expires. So me as an options trader, I would have bought that option a month ago, and when I saw the price go up to $350, I would have sold that option because somebody would be like willing to spend a lot of money on an option to buy this stock that's worth $350 for $18, 100 of them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way options works. But surely you have some questions about this GameStop thing, right?
Yeah.
A little chilly in here. So what have you heard about GameStop? Like, from your understanding, what's going on with that? What's the big hullabaloo?
So, I've been seeing it mainly on the news, where I've heard a lot about GameStop, and James was talking about it a little bit, but this is basically what I've heard. So there are some big hedge funds that were, shorting GameStop, which I still not 100% sure what that means.
Okay.
So they shorted GameStop, and they kind of had a hand in making that happen, and it would benefit them in return. And so what happened was there's a group of people on Reddit, and like the core group had a lot of money to invest, and they got a whole bunch of other people to kind of play along, and it became like a meme, like a cultural meme, and spread. And a whole bunch of people started buying GameStop stock and shooting up the price. And so when the hedge funds went to buy the stock, it was way more expensive than they anticipated. So they had to go into different funds to get enough money to buy it back. That's what I know about it.
Yeah, I mean you're pretty right on, but they haven't bought it back yet. That's the thing. So do you understand what shorting a stock means?
Yeah, a little bit. You could explain it though, for sure.
So if I wanted to sell a stock short, it would mean that I was selling a stock that I didn't own. So one of the things you can do in the modern market is borrow a stock and sell it with the promise to buy it back later. And so you would do that if you thought that the stock was worth more today, that you could get more for it today than you could in a month from now. Because then you're saying, okay, I'll sell it today, and then I promise that in a month I'll buy one and give it back to you. And so that's a common move with hedge funds, because when you're selling a stock short, you can sell it for whatever price you want. If you owned a GameStop stock, even though the price is $3.25, you could sell it for $1 if you wanted to. You could try selling it for $400 if you wanted to. Whether or not someone would be willing to buy it, probably not at $400. But if there was only 3 people on the planet trading GameStop, and you put in your sell order, which is when you tell your brokerage, I want to sell this stock for $400. I will take no less than that. It will just sit there, and the other 2 people on the planet would be looking at it, and they'd be like, okay, I'll pay $350, and then nothing would happen. And they'd be like, screw it, I really want it, I'll pay $400, and then you would get it. But since there's billions of stocks, of GameStop stocks being sold, you probably wouldn't get it. But you could guarantee you could sell it for less than $3.25. You could sell it for $1 if you want. So you can sell it for as little as you want. So if you're borrowing stock, you can sell it for less than the stock's actually worth today if you want, which makes the price on your screen go down. If you had a GameStop stock and you sold it for $200, even though the price says $3.25, for 1 millisecond it would say $200. but someone else's buy order would go through for 325 and it would go back right back up but for one little tiny teeny second, the price would say 200. So if you're a hedge fund or anybody with tons of money to play with, you can say, I want to borrow all the stock, all the shares that I can, and I'm willing to sell it for less and less and less. You can make the price go down. And that's what these big hedge funds do, is if they think a price is going down, they can sell a stock short and make it go down even more. And a super common move with big money is what you call people with big money, with a lot of money, or like hedge funds or institutions or big banks or whatever, is maybe they don't have enough to make the price go to zero, but they have enough to make the price go down for a few minutes. So they'll short a stock and they'll make it drop, and they'll make other people think, holy crap, it's dropping, and they'll create a sell-off which makes the price go down. So that's what a common tactic with big money. And with companies like GameStop, I mean, GameStop is a physical video game store, and the whole video game world's moving online. So the idea behind GameStop is like, okay, this is a company that's fading away, and then you've got hedge funds that are like, yeah, this company's fading away, let's take advantage of that, and we'll just short the hell out of it and make the price go down, and then we'll buy them back later for less, and we'll give them back, and then we'll short it some more, and they'll just keep doing that. And what happened in this case is they ended up shorting more shares than even exists. So I don't know, let's see, what is the float? The float is how many shares of this stock actually exist. Let's see if we can find that info. Well, I don't know what the info is, but let's just pretend there's 1 million shares of GameStop. They had short sold 1.4 million shares, 140%. So this company, or this hedge fund, or this group of hedge funds, was responsible for buying back 140% of the shares that exists. And they would have been all good if the price just kept going down, because they would buy the shares, give them back, short them again or whatever, and then buy some of the same shares they already gave back again and just do it again. But the people in this Reddit forum picked up on it, and they said, hey, if we can drive the price of this up, the time is going to come when they have to buy these shares back. They have to. Mm-hmm. And if we're all buying and holding and there aren't any shares for them to buy back, they're going to have to raise their price more and more and more until someone's willing to sell. And since they've got 140%, like, the price would just go through the roof. And so that's been the whole idea is, hey, let's run this price up, and when it comes time for them to have to buy these shares back to cover their short position, the price will go to 10,000, and then we'll all sell and get rich, and they'll be poor. And that's what people did. So
okay, so one of the biggest things that's confusing for me is, where's this money coming from? So when they short a stock or borrow stock, who are they borrowing the stock from? And then how does the money get transferred from whoever to the hedge funds? How are the hedge funds making money?
Okay, so what was the first part of the question?
Who are they borrowing the stock from so they can short it?
Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about how hedge funds use leverage. They borrow money. Mm. As a trader, if you qualify, you can qualify for what's called a margin account. Like, I have a margin account. Let's just say I have $5,000 in it. Since it's a margin account, I can buy $10,000 worth of stock. So my brokerage is willing to loan me $5,000 to trade with. Okay. But I'm on the hook for that. And so if you have a margin account, then the brokerage is allowed to let people borrow your shares to sell short. That's the trade-off. Hey, we'll give you more money to trade with, but we're going to borrow your shares to let other people trade with. And the brokerage makes a little bit of money for every transaction, so they don't care. The more transactions they get, the more money they make.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where a lot of this shit comes from. Is they're like, how many more ways can we get transactions to happen? Because we make a little bit of money each time.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the money come from? So there's what are called clearinghouses. So like your brokerage will deal with a clearinghouse, which is kind of like a bank, as far as I understand it. And so if you sell your shares, it takes a couple days for all of that to work itself out, but they'll just borrow the money from the clearinghouse and pay you right away, and then they'll deal with that on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay, so how's the hedge fund making all the money?
Well, they make money when they buy stock and sell it for more. They make money when they sell short stocks and then buy them back for less.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the game is, hey, we'll just short the crap out of the stock and drive the price down. And then other people that own shares will lose faith in it, and so they'll sell it lower and the price will just go down, and then we'll buy it back later. We'll buy those shares back later, we'll give them back, and then we'll do the whole thing again. And it's just like this perpetual cycle, and they make money the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
They lose money when the price goes up. But at this whole GameStop thing has really, opened people's eyes to the game, because all of a sudden, these hedge funds are in a bad position, and all of a sudden we have like these media news articles coming out saying that this Wall Street Bets group are like white supremacists and all this stuff, and they're terrorists. And you have CNBC was putting out ads, like paying for advertising, that said that Melvin Capital, the hedge fund that was most shorting, had liquidated all their short positions, so they weren't involved anymore. So it's like, why the hell would CNBC be buying ads to say this when it's probably not true, one, and two, like, what does CNBC care? So it's just showing all these little ties are coming out because, these people that have been making money off the system for so long and manipulating small retail traders like me are all of a sudden in a position where some of them are going to lose everything. They're going to end up owing billions of dollars. So they're pulling out all the stops.
Yeah. So do you know how much money has been transferred over from the big hedge funds and back into, like, what I've heard is the Reddit community?
I heard it was like 78 billion or something.
It's not illegal.
Let's see. 10 hours ago, short sellers are nursing estimated losses of 19 billion after betting on GameStop. And as far as I understand, like what it's called when whoever shorts has to buy it back at a higher price, it's called a squeeze.
Mm.
Because it's like they have to buy these shares, and if no one's willing to sell them, then they just have to keep raising their price until someone will sell them. And when that happens, the price usually skyrockets because the brokerages, they will just do it for you. Like, you don't sit there and say, okay, I'm willing to spend this much now to cover my shorts. The brokerage is like, no, we're going to cover your shorts now because we want our money. So they'll just raise the price as much as they have to liquidate, or to get those shares.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're trying to make happen. And I've been in a couple of these groups. Like, I was in a Telegram group. You know what Telegram is?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a messaging app or something. A couple days ago, the Wall Street Bets subreddit shut down for like an hour, and everyone thought, oh my god, they shut them down, but really they were just the admins that run it had to shut it down for a minute to like clean up all the spam and stuff because they couldn't keep up with it. And so everybody was creating all these groups, and I was in this Telegram group with like 3,000 people in it, and it was just like total swarm of people, like hive mind, like, hey, buy this, hey, buy that, like, hey, everybody buy this now. And that's when that Dogecoin thing started. Was a bunch of people were like, hey, buy Dogecoin, everyone's buying Dogecoin. And so everyone started buying it. and the price went from like 1 cent to like 8 cents at one point. And I'm kicking myself because I owned a bunch of that like a month ago when it was like less than 1 cent.
Mm-hmm.
But I sold it all because it wasn't a good investment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was all sorts of that happening, and eventually, after like 2 days, that group had been completely infiltrated by, like, I believe it was infiltrated. I can't prove who these people were, but they were, you know, oh, the GameStop thing is over. Oh, everyone's selling. Oh, buy this, buy that. Like, trying to scatter and confuse everybody. And a lot of these people, they're pretty vulnerable. Like, there's a bunch of people that were like, oh my god, I put my life savings in this, like, it's going down, please tell me it's going to be okay, all this stuff. And so, yeah, it just turned into a total shit show. So I ended up just exiting that Telegram group because I didn't want to be involved anymore. But, you know, I've been saying from the beginning, because I was paying attention to this on the first day when GameStop went, you know, it went up like 700% or something. And at that point, it was at like 60, which was a lot. And, you know, inevitably what's going to happen, and I hope this short squeeze thing happens, because it'd be a good kickback to, you know, big money. But a lot of regular people are going to lose, like, everything. Because no matter how high the price goes, there's going to be people buying in when it's really high. And the price will go down, and those people will be sitting there holding these stocks that are worth 1/100th of what they paid for it. And they're just not going to really know what happened. So, you know, it's not really good to trade stocks or to, especially on this kind of thing, to do it with any money you're not willing to lose. And it's hard to say that when there's people that have turned like 50 grand into 50 million, you know. But, you know, most people won't do that. Most people end up losing a lot of money on it. So I own some GameStop stock. I own AMC. I own a bunch of the cryptos, but not any more money that I would be willing to lose. For sure.
Yeah. So what do you think will be the most likely response to all this? Is there going to be new legislation or something?
Oh, I would be surprised if there wasn't. I'm like a total skeptic, so part of me thinks that this is almost kind of staged, kind of like the Capitol riot thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like take I think it was yesterday, for example. Robinhood, Webull, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, all of these different stock platforms were limiting people on how much stock they could buy. Like E-Trade would only let me buy 2 shares. It would only let me own 2 shares. The day before, Robinhood and E-Trade wouldn't even let people buy these stocks.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow yesterday, even though no one could buy them, the stock price went up 65%. And so it's like, who's buying this stuff? And the institutions, like big money, was still allowed to be trading. So I think a lot of the buyers are actually big money. And it just, it's not, people aren't supposed to be able to short more shares than even exist. So it's kind of weird to all of a sudden have this situation unfolding, have so much media attention on it, and to have the government, you know, politicians coming in, big money people coming in and saying we need more regulation, when the same people were saying we need less regulation like a year ago, you know. And in combination with all the other stuff that's been happening, it just seems to me like people are being rounded up. Like you've got, with all the COVID stuff is coming, like COVID or vaccine passports, and, you know, now there's like a lot of countries have apps that watch, you know, they're overtly tracking you. And there's just all these little ways that our personal lives and our privacy is just being, you know, obstructed and infiltrated. And now it seems like it's going to start happening with the stock market. This is the perfect excuse to make a bunch of rules and make it so there's even more eyeballs on every trade you make and more rules about it. Mm-hmm. So I've been thinking and saying since the beginning of this, which was only a few days ago, that I think this is probably the beginning of the end of the stock market as we know it. I think it's going to change into something else. And I mean, we'll see what happens with this. I don't know if it's true because I don't believe hardly anything I read on the news, but there's a lot of big money type people coming out and saying that this could literally crash the stock market. And from what I understand, it goes back to like those clearinghouses and stuff. Like if there's billions of these shares being traded and the shares are worth $350 now, what if they're worth 10,000? These clearinghouses and these brokerages, they have, like, if you sell a stock, they have to give you that money. But what happens if they run out of money? People are trying to sell stock, they can't sell it because there's no money to give them because all the money's tied up over here trying to do this. And what ends up happening is you go to sell a stock that's not even one of these, but the brokerage or the clearinghouse or wherever the money's coming from is like, sorry, all of our money's tied up over here. There's like not enough. You know, it's not like cryptocurrencies where the ledgers and everything are incorporated into the actual currency. Like, this is dollars using old systems that are totally inefficient. So, you know, maybe this will crash the stock market. I don't know. But a couple days ago, like when they weren't letting people trade, I thought it was bullshit because they were not letting people buy these stocks, but they were letting them sell these stocks. And it's like, if you're worried about running out of money, you're selling them. People are selling them and getting money. So why aren't you letting them buy? It really just seemed to me like they were trying to get the prices to go down. Because if you can't buy, you can only sell. Any moment where you have a panic moment and you sell your stock, you can't buy back in 5 minutes later like you normally can. And so if people could only sell, you know, there'd be a lot of people making that quick move and then not being able to undo it, which would drive the price down. And so I was using Robinhood. I have been for years. As soon as they told me I couldn't buy, I liquidated all my stuff. I sold everything. I withdrew all my money, and I'm just going to cancel my Robinhood account because I can't trade on a platform that restricts my trading. You know, if I can't be as nimble as I possibly can be, then I have no chance of winning. It's already hard enough to win. And so I'm currently looking for a brokerage that isn't going to do that. I heard Fidelity didn't restrict trading, but like all the other ones did. So that would be a really interesting move. You know, if people really want to take down the system, they'll buy GameStop, they'll hold on to it, and then when the short squeeze happens and the price goes to 10,000 or whatever, they'll sell all their shares and they'll withdraw all their money out all at once. And if everybody does that everywhere, all of these brokerages and clearinghouses are going to all of a sudden be out of money and not be so powerful as they are now. And it'd be interesting to see. I mean, that'd be a lot of power right back into the hands of individual people. But we'll see how it plays out. It's definitely interesting to watch it all unfold.
I think I had a question. I know that a lot of people, like average people, have money, I think, tied up into maybe not hedge funds, but into some funds where they deal with the trading, and it's like very low risk and kind of low reward. But this is something like people retire on. Will that affect that as well, and like hurt people that are like average people?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, low risk, low reward. I mean, there's a lot of things that were traditionally low risk that ended up being like a bad idea. Like during the housing crash, you know, there was everyone thought that they were in low risk stuff, and then it ended up going to nothing. And if the whole market crashes, those mutual funds and stuff aren't going to be exempt. Like the value of everything will go down. So, you know, I don't know. I know people that put their money into those mutual funds and stuff, and then like ended up losing money on it. And traditionally, like, you could put your money in bonds and stuff, and that would be low risk, which I guess it kind of is. If you believe the U.S. government's going to be around in 10 years, then buying a U.S. government bond with their promise to pay you back makes sense. But the yields are so low now, it's like 1%, that, you know, it's not, you know, maybe it's a, if they're printing money like crazy right now. So it's called inflation. They're inflating the money supply, so every time they add a dollar, the value of all the other dollars goes down a little bit. And if the interest rate on bonds isn't more than the inflation rate, then buying bonds is a bad move, because you buy $100 worth of bonds, and then 10 years you'll get $101 back, but that $101 is only worth $80 worth of value.
Yeah.
You know. So right now everyone's putting money into stocks, and every time they give another stimmy, you know, all these people are going into their Robinhood accounts and buying stocks. That's making the price of everything go to the moon.
Yeah.
But that won't last forever.
So what's the connection between, like, the stock market, the dollar, and cryptocurrencies? I heard people talking, like, I forget what tweet it was, but somebody said they can't control us if we don't use their currency. So they can't control, like, our trades and stuff like that if we're not using the dollar. Is that true? And the stock market being kind of erratic right now, does that affect the dollar?
Well, it's all tied together. And, you know, to, like, someone like me, you know, when I sell stocks and go into dollars, I'm not really that concerned with how much the dollar is worth today compared to what it was worth a week ago, you know.
Mm.
But for these hedge funds or mutual funds or big banks that are trading billions of dollars, those little tiny changes in the value of the dollar matter to them, because that could be worth millions. And so that's when it really matters more. And, you know, if the value of the dollar is going up, then it makes putting your net worth into dollars as opposed to something else more attractive. I mean, it's all pretty simple if you just think about it like it's capital. Capital is, like, I guess you could think of it as like value, or the ability to, like, purchasing power. So as different kinds of assets like stocks and the dollar and other currencies and bonds, if the value of bonds is going up, then there's going to be less money wanting to go into dollars and stocks. You know, if the value of bonds goes down, then people are going to want to not put their money in bonds and put it in the other things. So this money is always trying to find the place where it's going to get the most yield.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this market like a big ocean, is like there's a bunch of brains out there trying to figure out where will I get the most yield if I put all my money. And when you add it all together, it makes these big, you know, markets. But in, you know, on the most basic level, it is basic and simple. It's just like, where am I going to get the most yield? Cryptocurrencies, it's what makes those special is, for the most part, they're like, it's like decentralized. So with dollars, you have to, like, have a ledger. And back before computers and stuff, a ledger was like a notebook. It's like, okay, Henry's got $100. And then Henry gives me $20 for a bag of corn. Okay, now Henry has $80. You know, like, it's tracked all on this piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got computers, and it's all tracked in these computers. With cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, the ledger is, like, built into the Bitcoin. So every Bitcoin knows how much Bitcoins there are out there. And every time I give you a Bitcoin, that's tracked in the Bitcoins. Like, it's like a built-in ledger system. So it's super efficient. If I give you a Bitcoin, we don't have to write it down somewhere or put it in a computer. It's, like, tracked in the actual system. And so that makes it so there's no, like, with banks, they own the ledgers. So when money's transferred, they're the ones that track it. And so that gives them power over it.
Mm-hmm.
With cryptos is like nobody has that power. And with some of them, at least the idea was that you don't track it, or you can't track it. But it's coming out now that most of the cryptos can be tracked and traced, and so it's not like you can avoid paying taxes or something by using crypto, because there's ways for the IRS to find out what you've been doing, with your crypto.
Yeah. So can you explain what a Bitcoin is? I know of Bitcoin mining. How does a Bitcoin have value?
So, I don't think a Bitcoin has inherent value, because it's not like, it's not like gold or silver, that you can use gold and silver to like build electronics and to build things, and like people actually use metals to make things, but you don't use a Bitcoin to do anything. All it is a store of value, and all it's worth is what somebody else is willing to pay for it. The closest thing I can think of saying a Bitcoin has value is that it takes a certain amount of energy to produce one. Because, and like, I'm not a crypto expert, I've been trying to understand it for years, and so I'm getting better at it, but I still will probably say stuff that's wrong. But from my understanding, each Bitcoin is a solution to like a math problem. And it's a math problem that has a finite amount of solutions. And so you have these computers that are mining, but they're really just solving this equation or these equations or something. And every time a solution happens, it like fits into the keyhole and another Bitcoin is created. And so that's like the only place that you could say a Bitcoin has value, is it takes X amount of electricity to produce one. But for the most part, Peter Schiff talks about this all the time. Like, he's really big into gold and silver and stuff, because metals actually have value, where Bitcoin is only worth 40,000 because there's people willing to pay 40,000 for it today because they think it's going to be worth 50,000 tomorrow or whatever. As soon as everybody thinks that it's not worth 50,000, then it will be impossible to sell it. And if the price of Bitcoin started dropping super fast, you're gonna have to sell it for whatever somebody's willing to pay for it.
Okay.
Does that help you understand it?
Yeah, that makes sense. A little bit. How is it similar to the stock exchange, where you can sell it kind of automatically? Or does somebody have to buy it in order to sell it?
What do you like? So you can't sell a stock if no one's willing to buy it.
But you said before, like, you can change the price, so you're basically guaranteed to get rid of it if you wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're trading stocks, you can put in what's called a limit order. So let's say the stock I'm looking at it's worth $10 on my screen, and I want to buy a share. I can put a limit order for $9, which is me saying I will spend no more than $9 on this share. And it won't trigger until somebody else comes along and says, I'm willing. They put in a limit order and they say, I'm willing to accept $9. No more than $9 for this share. So those two have to match up. So if you came in and you said, I'll sell mine for $1, whoever, you'll probably get 9 for it because somebody else had an order in for 9.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
But you can't sell a stock unless there's somebody else willing to buy it.
Okay.
Same with crypto, same with everything.
But there's a similar mechanism for crypto, so you can lower the price if you want to. Can you change it?
Yep, you can put limit orders in for crypto and stuff too. And that's done through an exchange, just like a stock exchange. There's crypto exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to do it outside of an exchange, you could trade stocks and cryptos outside of an exchange. You can even get your stock certificate if you wanted to, and then you could sell it to me across this table, and I could give you money for it.
Mm-hmm.
And we could do the same thing with crypto. You could have it on a zip drive, plug it into my computer. I could plug mine in. We could type in our codes, and you could transfer to me. I don't know if you actually need to plug them both in, because like the cryptocurrency, it all exists on, like, I guess on the cloud, you would say. Like, as long as I knew your public key, then I could send you any amount of crypto that I had. And it would all be kept track of in in all the cryptos. You would sign on onto the internet. You would like plug into other people's bitcoins that are around until you like verified a certain amount or something like that. Like you would check with enough of them that it would say that you were, that was an accurate number, and then you would be able to trade it.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand, you don't need anything except your public and private key to access your cryptocurrency. And that's what's saved on your zip drive. You don't actually have the Bitcoin, you just have your public and private key that lets you access yours that's on the blockchain.
Yeah.
But as far as exchanges go, like, you don't sell it unless someone else is willing to buy it for whatever price that you're selling it for.
So how do the prices fluctuate? Is it based off of just how much somebody's willing to pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
So it has nothing to do, like for stocks, as an example. It doesn't have anything to do with how GameStop is doing.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. The only correlation is if GameStop's doing well and then they let the public know it's doing well, then the public might be willing to pay more for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the value, like the price of a stock, technically does not have any correlation with how well the company is doing. It's just how much somebody else is willing to pay for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Down with the Wall Street, power to the people, says James. Amen, brother.
What else have you bought? My dad bought some BlackBerry and I think AMC.
Yeah, I have AMC. I had Nokia. I had Nokia calls, so those were options. But I sold all those when I left Robinhood because they were pissing me off.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now I own some GameStop, some AMC, and a silver miner, and a uranium miner.
What are those?
Like a mining company.
Okay.
Public mining company, so I can
Yeah.
buy shares of it. Silver is another thing that the Wall Street bets people are looking at, which would be crazy, because silver is like, don't quote me on this, but the most shorted market in history. And like JP Morgan used to be, I think, the biggest short seller of silver ETFs. An ETF is, I think it stands for electronically traded fund, but it's basically like it's called a derivative. They made a security. A security is like a stock. It's like something that you can trade out. They made a security that's based off of the price of a physical asset like silver.
Mm-hmm.
But what ended up happening is the price of the security ended up affecting the price of silver, when it was actually silver was supposed to determine the price of the security. And so JP Morgan and other banks or companies or hedge funds or whatever would short the silver ETFs, driving the price down, and then they would turn around and buy physical silver because the price was beat down.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been fined billions of dollars at this point for manipulating, and they do what's called spoofing, which to my understanding is when they'll create like 1 million orders to sell this thing and then cancel it. But by putting those orders in, they show everybody else that's watching, oh my god, look at all these orders in, like, we better make a move.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of like it's just manipulating. It's tricking other people. And that's really what the markets are. It's like, once you understand that something is worth what someone else is willing to pay for it, the game becomes manipulating what other people think it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like what all of this stuff is. Like Tesla, I mean, I don't know, but I don't think Tesla's worth what it's trading for today. But every time Elon Musk tweets something about it, the stock flies up, But anyways, JP Morgan would short SLV, the silver ETF, which would drive the price down of actual silver, and then they turn around and buy the physical silver. and they've amassed like 1 billion ounces of silver. Let's see, how much silver is mined in a year? Oh, I gotta see ounces. How many ounces? So in a year in the world, 885 million ounces are mined. So JP Morgan owns more silver than is mined in the entire world in a year. And they bought it with prices that were set or manipulated by them shorting it on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty crazy. When I read that article, I went and bought a bunch of silver because it's like, if JP Morgan's buying a ass load of silver, then I think that's probably a good thing to buy. And since SLV, the silver ETF, has always had a really big short position, or short position, it could result in a similar squeeze that GameStop. Not as extreme, but you could create, if enough traders went on and made the price of that ETF go up, they could create the same situation. And what would be interesting in this case is the price of silver, it affects so many other areas. Like, it would affect the price of gold, it would affect all the mining companies that mine silver, because their value goes up and down based on the price of silver. So if silver's right now is like $25 an ounce. If it went up to like $100 an ounce, all of a sudden all these other stocks would fly up in value, and so all the short positions on those stocks would get squeezed. And if they really hit it hard at the right time, it could create like a chain. What do they call it? A chain effect?
Chain reaction.
Chain reaction that just like blew the lid off of the metals markets.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's these banks and stuff holding down the prices, it's a battle, you know? It's like holding down a pot with steaming water in it. Like, it wants to explode, so if it got big enough, the lid would pop off, and it would just go nuts. And I think that would really shut down the market. That'd be crazy.
Goodness.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. I think in our modern age, this stuff has gotten a little bit out of hand. Because, like, dollars is just one place where capital exists. Cryptocurrencies is another place. Silver and gold is another place. And you have like this many dollars, you have this much gold, this much silver, this many stocks. The derivatives market, like ETFs and options and all that, is like this. Like, if there's, I gotta look it up because the numbers are so big. Nobody even knows how much money worth of derivatives there are. Like, it's there's just so much. And that's why we have like these big crises and shit. Is because there's so much money that's just been created out of nowhere in all these derivatives and stuff that's constantly traded around, that our like actual amount of dollars or actual amount of gold that exists just pales in comparison to how much capital is being traded that isn't actually worth anything. It's only worth what someone else is willing to pay for it. Let's see, how many dollars exist? According to the Bank of International Settlements, the total amount is about 5 trillion, like actual physical dollars. According to the CIA, the total amount is 80 trillion if you include broad money, the US dollars. So that must mean money abroad. Like, this one says 1.2 trillion. Let's see, digitally. 92% of the world's currency is digital. So it's not even paper. Not that the paper is really worth anything. Let's see, how much value of gold exists on Earth? Come on, Google, you can't just like give me the answer. They probably don't want me to know. Like, no, you can't look that up.
So every year when more silver is mined, does the price of silver go down a little bit?
No, because silver's used for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's used in electronics. It's used to build cars, cell phones. So a lot of it gets used
Okay.
and lost. You know how much silver people buried in the ground that just like gets forgotten about. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but I used to have this like infographic that would show you like, oh, this is how much the U.S. economy is worth, and this is how many dollars there are, and this is how much gold there is, and this is how much silver there is, and it was like, this is how much derivatives there are, and it was just like insane. So the reason I brought this up is because it feels like we're kind of we've gone so far beyond the boundaries of what's reasonable that it's like it feels like a house of cards. You know, it's just there's so many. If anything weird happens, like this GameStop thing, it could just make the whole thing come crumbling down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not sustainable, and a lot of that's because of the debt. Like, you know, it's no mystery or it's no secret that the whole world's in massive amounts of debt. Like, we're in so much debt now that our government, but really it's the Federal Reserve that isn't actually part of the government, is creating so much money just for us to stay where we're at. And if you think about it at like its root principle, what do you do when you borrow? Like if you buy stuff on credit, you are buying something today with the promise that you will pay it off in the future. And how do you pay stuff? How do you get money? You work. So it's like, I am willing to promise to work in the future to pay for this today. Well, it's the same thing with when countries borrow. We've literally been borrowing from the future to make today better. And we've been doing that for so long that what happens when we can't borrow enough to keep growing? What happens when we can't borrow enough to even maintain where we're at?
Mm-hmm.
Things will start to go downhill. And if all of a sudden we weren't able to borrow, like if you look at a graph with the population and like you look at a graph, you overlay it with a graph of like debt expansion, like they go up in parallel. So what happens when all of a sudden we aren't able to borrow anymore? It's like, well, we're not going to be able to sustain the same kind of population. We're not going to be able to sustain the same way of life that we're used to. And America is the biggest transgressor of that. Mm-hmm. Like, we've borrowed the most, we owe the most, we've lived the most beyond our means, so we have the most to lose when that can't be maintained anymore. It's hard to fathom, you know. Like you and I, we were born into this world. We don't really know anything else, so it's hard to fathom like what the world might be if we weren't able to just keep doing what we've been doing.
Yeah.
But we'll probably find out sooner or later.
What do you think some big changes would be if they're going to happen regarding the stock market, especially?
Well, I think the stock market, like the way that it's been going up lately, is all like people keep calling it a bubble, and it is a bubble, but it's like a bubble on top of a bigger bubble, which is the debt bubble. So right now, the Federal Reserve is printing shitloads of money to buy bonds, like from like government bonds, and how like the interest rate works is if more people are buying bonds, then there's the more capital moving into the bond market, then the interest rate will drop because, you know, they don't need as much money. If money stopped flowing in, the interest rate would raise until it was attractive enough to draw capital. But interest rates is like how much interest we pay on debt. And in order to keep the stock market where it is, in order to keep the economy functioning, they have to keep those interest rates low so that everyone can keep borrowing money. And so in order to keep those interest rates low, the Federal Reserve is just printing money to buy these bonds. Like, you wouldn't buy a bond with your hard-earned money because it's a bad deal. You will lose money on that deal. But the Federal Reserve doesn't care because it's not even their money. They're just printing it out of nowhere, and the capital or the value actually just comes out of all the other dollars that already exist. So they're like, okay, we'll just keep buying these bonds. We'll keep the interest rates low, and that will allow everything else to function and allow money to flow into the stock market and keep making that go up. And, you know, I might be saying some things wrong, so if, like, Peter Schiff, if you're watching, I'm sorry. But I think at this point in time, the, like, politicians, government, like, anybody that's in any position of power or wealth they want to do everything they can to make sure there's no revolution. Because if shit gets too bad here on, like, for us lower level people, and all of a sudden we don't have anything to lose and we're pissed off, we're just going to revolt and overthrow our government. It's happened tons of times throughout history. But they don't want that to happen. So they can't let the stock market crash because of all those mutual funds and stuff. People have their pensions, their retirements, the values of their homes, like everything we have depends on these values staying high. If all of a sudden the stock market went down 75% tomorrow, all of a sudden people wouldn't be getting paid for their pensions, their retirement accounts would be worth squat, they wouldn't be able to afford these insanely huge mortgage payments they have anymore. Like, everything would crumble, and then people would be on the street, they'd be pissed off, and they'd be like, who do we blame? Blame them. They don't want that to happen, so that's got to be part of the mechanism of what's driving this insane debt expansion and the crazy stock market. Like, the stock market's gone parabolic. It's just going straight up. And I think as long as the money printing keeps happening in order to buy those bonds and expand the debt, that all of that money that's being created will make its way to the stock market, and the prices will just keep going higher and higher until they don't anymore. And then when they don't, they're just going to go So it's a pretty wild time to be trading stocks and stuff. What's up, Holmes?
James says he's buying some Dogecoin. Some Dogecoin.
Nice. What's it worth right now? Yeah, I bought a couple cryptos today. You know, it's like when crazy shit like this week is happening, it's like I'm just buying a little bit of all these things that they're talking about in case one of them goes up 10,000%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got to get James on this podcast.
I know we do.
If you're out there, James, if you're watching, let's see, Dogecoin is worth 2 cents. It was worth 8 cents like not too long ago. I think that's, or maybe that's how much I paid for it. You know, Dogecoin started out as like a joke.
Yeah, with like that meme, dog meme, whatever.
Like, somebody was like joking about it, and then someone actually went out and made it, and then Elon Musk tweeted about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now it's worth like 2.8 cents. So yeah, like a week ago it was worth. That's not even. That's like 80% of 1 cent. And then it went all the way up to like 8 cents. So that was pretty cool.
What'd you buy it at?
The stuff I have right now I bought for 2 cents. And then XRP, that's another one. I own some of that. That one was up 50% today. Let's see, it's up 46% now. That one's kind of weird. Like, so that one was really popular. It went up to, I think it was, what is it at now? It was, I don't know, it went up a bit, and then the SEC started investigating them and saying that there was fraud and all this stuff. And so all the big crypto exchanges stopped letting people buy and sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a total skeptic, so I think it's a total bullshit, of course. And I think that they're doing that because the people that are like pulling these strings are buying it all up because XRP is going to be announced to be like involved in the new dollar, digital dollar, or something like that. So I'm holding on to mine. There's people that think, it's worth like, what, 40 cents now? Yeah, it's worth like 41 cents now. There's people that think that we could wake up one day and that'll just be worth like $100 or something. Just because if the government decided to use that as part of like the digital dollar, then they would just say, okay, this is the new currency and this is how many dollars it's worth. They would just set the price like that. So it wouldn't really be a free market at all. It would just be like, this is what the price is. And they've done that before with like gold. Like a long time ago, they said gold is worth $35 an ounce. That's how much it is. And it's illegal to buy or sell it for anything else, something like that. So that's one of the cool things about crypto is people think that the government won't be able to come confiscate it like they have gold in the past. And that's what this is all about. Like it's not just about making money, it's about keeping money. When you have millions and billions of dollars, it's a total pain in the ass to keep it. Because everything you do with it, it like just loses value everywhere it goes. You could just, if you just had $1 billion, you just kept it all in cash, you had it like under your mattress, between a year ago and today, it would have lost like, I think 8% of its value. I think that's what it is. It's like that $1 billion would only be worth 81 million or 810 million or 910, whatever, 910 million. So you can't keep it there, so where can you keep it? Okay, you could buy some gold, maybe that'll hold its value, but the price of that goes up and down too. So it's a pain in the ass to keep your money once you have it. And that's why people say like diversify. Like if you buy a little bit of this and that and that and that and that, then if any one market gets hit really hard, at least you won't lose all your capital.
Mm-hmm.
I think I bought some of this one today, Curve. Oh man, I'm gonna pump that with all three people watching this. They're gonna run out and buy that now. Yeah, Curve. I just bought it because it was up a whole bunch today, and I was like, oh shit. What's going on with that? There it is, up 32%. This is called Kraken. It's like a crypto exchange. Okay, there was another thing I wanted to show you, but first, check out the sweet villa that I'm going to be staying in Mexico next month. What's that one?
Ooh, nice. How long are you going to be there? 3 weeks?
This one I'm going to be there for a week.
Okay.
Yeah, check that out. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Who are you going with?
So I'm going to this conference, and I have a bunch of friends going, and then there's me and 5 other people are going to be renting this villa.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I'm trying to find the other pictures of it.
Are you going to be keeping up with the cryptos?
Oh, of course. It's that one right there.
Dang, that's nice.
A big fat satellite dish on top. Got a pool. There's another really sick picture. Oh, no, that one's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That one. Look how sick that is.
That's nice. Dang, you can walk all the way out there too, right? Like walk on the rocks.
Falling. Let's see if I can show the peeps. There we go. There it is. gonna be sweet.
What are you guys gonna be doing? Just relaxing.
Hanging out. I'll be working a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Okay. So what I wanted to show you, it's called the Gorgon Stare.
Never
Can you
heard
guess
of it.
what that is?
The Gorgon Stare.
Okay, so the Gorgon Stare was developed in like the mid 2000s, and it's this camera that they attach to drones, and it's got like, from what I understand, it's like multiple cameras. It's got like multiple lenses, but they're able to fly really high over a city, and this camera's got 1.8 billion pixels. And it's able to fly over a city, and you can zoom into any one spot, like in super high detail, but it's still recording the whole thing. So they can like fly over a city and literally record everything that's happening, and like zoom in so far they can see you like eating a sandwich. They might even be able to see like your phone. Like I don't know how good the cameras are, but yeah, they developed this, and now they use it on drones, and they actually use it over the United States, and it's just like total next level of surveillance. Like you can't go outside and do anything without being seen by this camera if it's flying over.
Is there a picture of it?
Yeah.
Gorgon Stare.
You can see I was searching for it. There's not a whole lot. Like there's like an infographic about it. Let me see if I can figure out how to show people what we're looking at here.
Okay. So that's like each generation of.
Yeah. Plus Argus or something, but they're able to see like this huge area instead of traditionally, you can only see like one thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Enemy of the State?
No.
So it came out in 1999. It had Will Smith in it, and it was like about the NSA, and they were tracking him down, and they were using satellites with cameras on him, and it was like, they moved like, beep 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 beep, like doot, 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 moving the satellite, and then like tracking cars and stuff. And that technology didn't actually exist. They just made it up for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But that inspired some like military defense researchers to actually try to make something like that. And they ended up making this thing, which they attached to a drone. And it's got, like, here's a picture of a drone with it on there. Oh, like here's the thing. What's the picture? So it's like that camera there, just big ass thing.
Jeez.
Dang it, that drone's got freaking missiles on it. That's freaking scary. But yeah, like in the future or maybe now, like these things are gonna be flying over all over the place. Like there's just like no escaping it. We got these cell phones that track us everywhere we go. Half the people are wearing Fitbits and Apple Watches and shit. Pretty soon people are going to be wearing the Google glasses everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be regulating the stock market closer, watching everything you do on that. They now are going to be monitoring everyone's health all the time, and, you might be sick. You're getting an alert on your phone. Your temperature just went up a half a degree. Like, you better go to the doctor. You're not allowed to leave your house. Like, the level of surveillance is just getting insane. And, that's having individual like autonomy and privacy is what makes a democracy a democracy. Like you can't have a democracy if everyone's afraid to like go outside and act with their free will because they're afraid of getting spotted by some drone flying overhead. Like it's like, don't associate with anybody labeled a terrorist. And like now they're labeling Wall Street bets guys terrorists.
Yeah.
It's like pretty freaking creepy. But I definitely recommend reading into this.
Yeah, well,
this Gorgon Stare thing. You notice like you can't find any pictures from the actual thing.
Mm-mm.
Oh, but there are like, have you ever heard of Gigapixel?
No.
There's a website. Let's see if we can find it. Gigapan, high resolution images. Oh, this stuff is so cool. So there's like these people, they take these cameras and they'll take like, shoot, this might be from a Gorgon Stare. These pictures are so high resolution that you can like zoom into any part and like get hella zoomed in. Like let's see if we can do it on here. Yeah, dude, like this isn't even military grade.
What? That's
You
not
can,
more
like-
than one picture?
Huh?
It's not more than one picture.
Well, it could be like millions of pictures all
Oh.
condensed into one, like, you know, with a processor or something.
Yeah.
But look at that, like, you can like, if someone was up there, like, you know, sneaking a joint, you'd be able to see them from outer space. Shit is crazy. Oh, I gotta put this on the live stream so people can see. Let's see. Check this out.
Oh my.
All right. Well, where should we look? Oh, let's look down in this little stadium thing. Oh, that's right. They're on top of a tower. Okay. Let's see. Let's pick a building. Let's go look at that building right there. It's like, is there anybody sitting on top of that? Let's go check it out.
Jeez. Oh my goodness, dude.
Right? Nope, nobody up there. So cool. Like, you could spend hours looking at this, like looking for stuff. And they've got pictures from like all sorts of places. It's really fun. I bet you could. It's like, where's Waldo?
Oh yeah, go look at the cars.
Look at that shit. Like, imagine what the military has. They could probably read that license plate.
Yeah.
Wow, look at all those people. So, you know, you can guarantee they have this kind of stuff when they have, like, protests and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, this is like, you can buy this machine and it'll like zoom in and out and take tons of pictures and then condense them all into one.
Okay.
So, I mean, they must have some pretty nice cameras. But when they have this on like a drone, it's like they can just do this in real time.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what other kind of pictures they have. Gigapans, that's what they're called. Galleries, nice. Okay, so that was New York City, I guess. Where's it at? I don't even know what that is. You zoom in. Oh, that one's boring.
Yeah.
Dang, that's like really high out. That's like from a satellite or something. Geospatial. Brisbane. That's Australia. Let's go see what the Aussies are doing. Size 0.19 gigapixels. I wonder how many gigapixels the Gorgon Stare is.
Mm-hmm.
What is a gigapixel? We should probably Google that. A gigapixel. Okay, a gigapixel is 1.9 or 1 billion. So the Gorgon Stare would be 1.8 gigapixels, where this image is 0.19 gigapixels. So that's way more. This thing won't even load on my computer. So big it won't even load. I wonder how big this one was. Okay, this one was 5.8, so that's more than the Gorgon Stare. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That makes me feel a tiny bit better. Yeah, this one's really cool. That must have taken this guy like a week. Oh, what? Look at that shit. Except, yeah, I mean, it must take pretty quick pictures because these people are not blurs, you know?
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I wonder how many people just sit there and like look at this and all night and find all sorts of crazy stuff. So that is the Gorgon Stare. Go home, Google it. You won't be able to sleep.
Goodness.
So, do you have any more questions about the stock market or anything like that?
I don't think so. We covered a lot of stuff. What time is it?
It's been about an hour and a half. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
How's the Maps of Meaning going? Have you been reading it?
Yeah, it's very, very good. What page are you on? Have you been going through it?
No, I haven't read that much of it. I've
Really?
only read like most of the first, or I read the preface and then like some of the first chapters.
Okay. Yeah, it picks up once he's finally gotten to like dissecting different myths, and that's super good because you can see everything that you read about kind of put in practice, and it's by
okay.
Jordan Peterson too, so he knows what he's doing.
Nice.
So it's really good.
Would you be down to do a podcast about that?
Yeah, definitely.
So I got the audiobook too.
Mm-hmm.
So I read the preface and then I listened to it, and that's how I was gonna do it because like, you know, I don't have tons of time to study it, but I could read it and then listen to it, and then I should know the material decently well, at least enough to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. Once you get, I mean, you would know by just looking at the first pages of the first chapter. It is so dense that you could pull out so many things from just a few pages.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking was like we could do like one per chapter over the course of, you know, some time.
Yeah.
But if we did like a good job and we really like, you know, put some thought into it and stuff, I think it'd end up being pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so too. Definitely adding and kind of breaking things down a little bit because it's complex.
And then we'll buy some ads and get Jordan Peterson to find it, and then you can go on the Jordan Peterson podcast.
Yeah,
That'd be sick.
That'd be crazy.
James says, "Just tell me when and where." All right, James, we will get you on the next one. You gotta send me a text message though, and tell me what your days off are so we can schedule it. All right, well that wraps up the first YouTube live of the ever. Any parting words for our dedicated audience?
No, I don't got too much. I think that we all know a little bit more now about the stock market and about Bitcoin and stuff. I think that's important because that's the direction that everything's going. So it's good to have at least an elementary knowledge about what's happening around us.
For sure. And yeah, it's good to be on the leading edge of that because we're, like you said, we're probably heading that direction, and a lot of people are going to need help getting acquainted and understanding it because I've been trying to understand it for years and I still don't really understand it. All right, well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we will catch you on the next one.